Welcome to another episode of Behind the Scenes, a sneak peek, raw and rough set of conversations with someone whose persona you may already know, but you haven't really gotten up close and personal. So here's our chance to get to know him. It's always a joy to discover and uncover things about a person whom we like or admire or look up to. Maybe you are his friend, his fan, his follower, his family. So let's get behind the scenes. Our guest today is so special. He is a meditation master, he is a yoga teacher, and he is a kindred spirit. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm virtual applause to Nick Daez.
Thanks so much for having me, Pedro.
So let's talk a bit, Nick. How have you been these
Sure.
past 7, 8 months?
Sorry, Pedro, you got a bit choppy.
Oh, choppy choppy. So let's
You're
reach.
okay now. You're okay now. Yeah.
I'm okay now. So let's recap. How have you been these past months or year?
The past couple of months have been challenging for sure. The past year I was fortunate enough to be living in La Union, right by the beach. So, it was honestly very normal. I mean, there was still like social distancing and wearing masks, but there was a pretty big community that was I guess developing in San Juan La Union. So, it made me feel less lonely, it made me feel more connected. But of course family is all in Manila. So I would come back often, and you have to deal with the new, they call it new normal, but I don't think I've accepted it fully yet. There's that sense of denial, maybe like disbelief, but like you just take comfort in the little things now, like being able to get some sun, being able to go outdoors. Of course, now that we're in ECQ again in Manila, it's different, but it makes you more grateful. It's a very big perspective shift, and it is challenging, but that's how we grow, right?
When you are in La Union, what is your typical day?
So my day is pretty it changes every time. Like sometimes like I have slow mornings wherein I just go to the cafe next door and work, do emails. At the same time, there are a lot of people who I see in the cafe, so I get to chat with them, hang out with them a bit, and then I usually have classes in the afternoon and the evening. So it changes all the time. Sometimes I have online classes, sometimes I have face-to-face classes, sound baths or meditation sessions, yoga sessions. I have to work on marketing collaterals and do a bit of sales for my classes. So it's it's still a job, but it's not as stressful as my old job, which is managing a video production company and directing commercials and TV shows. So that's a very different life. And now it's been pretty chill the past 3 years, but very, very grateful though that I have a lot of free time, and it provides enough to sustain me.
From your creative video producing job, was the shift to La Union a choice or by circumstance?
It was definitely a bit of both. Um, it was the only place that I knew of. This was like early pandemic era, like the first couple of months. And I knew people who were going up. I knew there were people there that were friends of mine. So it was the closest place to get to. So for me, it was like, okay, let's try this out. And then I ended up staying 7 months, which is for me pretty long because I've been jumping around a lot before the pandemic. And yeah, it was very different because it was the first time I ever saw La Union empty for the first few months. And even the community was it had changed a lot also. But I consider myself like the lucky few that was able to get out and live a semi-normal life compared to most people they were really stuck at home.
Did you have difficulty in the shift?
100%, 100%. Like it's been 7 years since I got into the practice of yoga and meditation and being on the spiritual path, and it's changed a lot. You know, and I did have moments, actually long periods of time wherein, you know, I was just basically teaching and learning and really sort of, I guess, turned my back from advertising and directing and just, you know, running a business. And you know, there were consequences for that, you know, like in terms of financial consequences and you know, giving up certain luxuries and comforts. And I think it was good at the time, but actually it's interesting that you asked this. Now I'm actually going back into production. I'm going to be running my company again next month, since my brother was the one running it for the last couple of years, and then, you know, he's decided to change paths. And so it's time for me to take over again. And you know, there is some fear, of course, but also a bit of excitement. It's a very clear shift into a new. I wouldn't say it's a step back, it's a step forward, because like I'm coming. It's been a long time. You know, I barely remember what it was like. So it's something new. You know, I'm still gonna teach, so it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a good balance of serving, teaching, and you know, doing work. So yeah, it's a new chapter unfolding very soon.
Would you say that your spiritual path will add a new flavor to the way you produce and create?
I definitely, for sure. I noticed that already when I was still working with my company, and I was already getting into, you know, the spiritual practices. Like I would incorporate meditations in our before our meetings, you know, before shoots, we do a quick, you know, meditation as well. And I think it's really more like the my pace. You know, before, for a while, it was always like hustle, grind 110%, even if you're tired and sleepless. And now I really, you know, sleep's important, self-care is important. And I think I'm gonna come into it with that. And I'm not gonna go in like killing myself. You know, I don't think that's the a sustainable way in of working. I'd like to think that with the tools that I've learned, maybe I can work better, work smarter, and you know, create that good work-life balance. Because for me, that's super important these days. When unlike before, I was really more a workaholic and just obsessed with like success and results and money. And it is important, you know, money is still important, but I think it's also important to know what's enough. You know, not have too little, not have too much, or you know, if you have too much, learn how to use it. So yeah, a lot of insights.
How can man learn that it is enough?
You know, that's a really interesting question, and I think that's changed a lot. I think it's always going to change. In the last 7 years, it's changed constantly. You know, like being able to live with very little, like you can put a number in it. Let's say just like 20,000 a month. You know, like just very simple living. And then, but you know, like there are times when you want more, you want to travel, you have to earn more money. But especially if you have a family, or you want to start a family, or you want to have a comfortable life maybe when you retire. I think it's constantly changing, and I think you have to. It's more about being honest with yourself. Like sometimes maybe you have to sacrifice for a bit, not spend too much on shopping, and you know, save up for like a nest egg. And I would actually learn very. I would consider it late. Like I think the last couple of years, I started realizing that it's important for me to start saving up. And I'm 35 already. Before it was more like just, you know, enjoy life, but you know, I realized that as you get older, you know, you get more tired, and you know, you can't really hustle when you're at like 80, diba? So it's, you know, there's a bit more sensibility now. And you know, it's of course it's challenging because you get used to being a bit more relaxed, but then you'd be bored. So, you know, these challenges are there to help you grow. And that's what I keep reminding myself, but it doesn't remove the suffering, but the stuff it's more of like you're gonna suffer for different things, and you just need to keep a perspective in it that it's always gonna change the man. It's never gonna be the same because you have the choice to pick what you want to suffer for. And yeah, it's been interesting.
You come from a big, closely knit family. What was it like growing in a loving family, and what about it do you still carry in you and with you?
Yeah, so I grew up with 8 siblings. I'm the eldest, and even in terms of like cousins, I think we're more than 50 in my dad's side, the dad's side, and then my mom's side, we're around more than 30. and that's excluding the second cousins, and we're all pretty big and we're all pretty close, and it's all I know. About you'd always have sleepovers, would always be have reunions together and on a regular basis. So it's like you have this really huge immediate family, and even with the nuclear family pa lang, it's so big na. And it made me realize, especially when I moved out and lived on my own, that I'm not used to being on my own. Like I'm used to hearing people's voices, knowing that people are around, and that was a pretty big adjustment for me. I think that's why you know I think I'm an introvert, but I can be social, and I like having people around me, even if we're not talking. And I think that's what made me like like surf towns like La Union, like Siargao, and Cebu, because like they're very small communities, but they're just all around you. And even Manila naman, there's a lot of people around you, and I like that. It makes you feel like you're part of something, and you don't need to always engage. But on the flip side, Ren, it made me appreciate solitude as well. Like I do like eating out by myself. I do like traveling by myself, and even I did this silent retreat in Nepal a couple of years ago for Vipassana. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, because that's like 10 days of silence and no talking, no reading, nothing. And it was very rigorous, but it made me appreciate the value of being silent and being intentional. And yeah, I as much as I like being around people, now I also like being by myself, like taking time out to just be quiet, be still, and just be there. And it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing.
You are so into things that are quiet and still, chimes, meditation, yoga, the waves. And it's easy to see how these things elevate the spirit of man. But may I ask you, does noise have a place or purpose in the life of man?
I definitely think that noise has a place in like the life of a man, because like growing up, I was constantly surrounded by noise. I actually like going out to parties, to clubs, to bars. Like I like the chatter. I like the, that energy. And like as I grew older, and especially with the Kundalini yoga practice, the sound healing, it made me even appreciate it more. That that noise is part of it. It's not just silence. It's that you need that mayhem. You need that sometimes like the crying of a toddler, of a baby, diba? Like it can get annoying, but the thing is you have to remind yourself that they're not crying to spite you, to annoy you. They're crying because there's a message. Either they're hungry or they're sleepy or they're restless. And I think that's you got to be in tune with that, even like with your surroundings. When the silence is too thick, that means you got to address it. Diba? You got to talk. Or sometimes when you're talking, you got to listen. So it's deep. It's pretty. It has a lot of layers. The noise and silence, and I think that's something you need to constantly tune into, because you can get pretty complacent, and you can get pretty oblivious as well if you don't really take the time to tune in and listen and hear the sounds, hear the noise.
So are you saying, Nick, that noise has a message for me if I only know how to listen to it?
I wouldn't say it's just if you know how to listen, because like sometimes I think it evokes an emotion or just maybe a trigger, and that's enough to kind of move somebody into, like a realization or into action. So like, but if you do listen, if you do discern, I think that there's a lot of insight on that. There's a lot of value. Like sometimes, because even me, I find myself just not talking and not listening, not really listening to the person or to what people have to hear, because you don't want to hear it. But more often than not, when you don't want to hear it, there's probably something to that, to reflect on, like why am I triggered? Why am I annoyed? What is it about this person that I don't like? Like these things are all, I'd like to believe that they're mirrors of reflections of us, diba? That's something we can work on, or maybe just try to try to acknowledge at least, to start off.
So is it safe to say that all noise is good?
For me, I grew up in a very Catholic family, so like, like Opus Dei. So I know that the good and the bad are very distinct, and I would admit that it's still there. I think it will always be there, but like I've also learned from different traditions that I don't think there's anything. I'd like to believe there's nothing good or bad. It's just like it's all part of this really big cosmic, I don't know, plan, or this universe that you need the bad for the good, you need the good for the bad. It's just it's that's the way life is, diba? So I admit I don't see it that way all the time, but like I always tell myself that, especially when you're in a really stressful, seemingly bad situation, it's there to teach you something. It's there to help you evolve, and that's for me, that makes it pretty good, diba? And I always try to frame it that way, even if I fail. Like most of the time, I have to tell myself that this is happening for a reason, and don't label it na lang. It doesn't need to be looked at as something awful or bad or good. It's just happening, diba? It's just happening for you, not against you. And you might not understand it right now, but maybe in a couple of years, a couple of months, you're gonna see, okay, this is why it happened, diba? But it takes a lot of openness to be able to accept that, and radical acceptance as well.
So some are ready, some are not. It's up to them.
Yeah, it's up to you. I think you can only meet yourself where you are, and the lessons will they'll never stop. And I think that's a thing. We romanticize that destination, that we're good, we're healed, we're enlightened, whatever you want to call it. But like it's gonna be constant, and that is a cause of distress, but also a bit of comfort. That okay, till the end, it's gonna be, or maybe there's no end. Maybe there's gonna be constant evolution, and yeah, it's a fascinating thought. It's also very provoking.
Which of the practices you do gives you the most comforting detox?
Most comforting detox. I would say my Kundalini yoga practice has stayed with me the longest. It's been like almost 8 years, and even if it's changed a lot, I'm not. Sometimes I'm super into it. I'm practicing every day. Like now, it's like it's already part of my psyche. Like I always chant the mantras when I step out. The heart protection mantra, or like let's say satnam, like truth is my identity. Like it's there. When I'm feeling unsafe or I'm feeling down, I just recite it or mentally vibrate it, or listening to the music, and it really comforts me. I think it's because like the time I was so deeply in it, um, in the culture, the Sikh culture, the Kundalini yoga culture. It was just a very powerful experience to me, and I know it works. It's really a form of technology that uplifts the soul, and every part of your being, your body, the mind, and I know that I'll always come back to it, and even no matter how simple it is, how complex it is, it will always be there, and I'll always be grateful for the practice and being able to be a teacher as well.
Let's go back to your being creative and artistic. Does it run in the family?
Yeah, I think it does. In terms of being artistic and creative, like among all my siblings, like maybe half of us are into like the arts or music, or building stuff, computers, or like some are even in basketball, which I think is a creative thing as well, being able to, or being into games. I think everyone's kind of creative, but also there's also a bunch that are a bit more logical and cerebral, more into like numbers and math. I wouldn't say I'm into that. Like I would say I'm really more into like art and creation, and writing. And yeah, I mean we were exposed to a lot of things growing up, which I'm super grateful for, for my parents. And I think even just like the pop culture around you, things on TV that you listen to, it shaped us a lot. And I think even now with this the digital age and social media, it's just really like evolving, and it's a pretty, it's an overwhelming time, but it's exciting. I'm learning about like cryptocurrency and blockchain now, like blockchain games, and it's difficult because it's not something I'm really into, but I'm learning it because like, it's the future then. It's happening right now, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Is it getting too much?
That's the thing. I think at one point, maybe a few years ago, I was like totally in just for analog. Like I didn't want like anything to do with like, technology. But I think I'm starting to see because that the technology is really part of our evolution. It's just you can't stop it. You can choose to ignore it, but the more that I learn about the technology now with crypto and blockchain and all these AI, I think it's gonna do a lot of good for a lot of people. But like all things to money, it doesn't matter, even if it's natural or like technology driven, like it can be used for good and bad. And again, it's like, is it really good or bad? But like at the end of the day, it's all just tied in together. And might as well. Personally, I want to learn more about it. I want to embrace it, because it's pretty cool. It's something that it's only happening at this like time, like that we're alive, like people from different generations, they experience a different thing, and this is our generation's like, I guess, like new wave, and it'll be, sayang not to embrace it.
So it's being present to the present, whatever the present is.
Exactly. This is the present moment. This is the current landscape situation, and like you may not resonate with it, but it's happening with or without us. Just the same way with life, but it's gonna keep going. It doesn't really regard your feelings, or your thoughts or your plans. It's just happening. But I would like to believe that it's happening for you, for us. It's conspiring. That Paulo Coelho quote. The whole universe is conspiring to help you achieve your dreams. But you got to be intentional, Ren. You got to trust that there's something happening talaga, something in play.
Do you surf
Yes.
a
I
lot?
surf. I wouldn't say I'm like, yeah, before I used to surf a lot more before. I mean, like I enjoy it. I wouldn't say I'm an obsessed surfer, but I do enjoy surfing, every so often. I do. It's a very unique high when you surf, catching a wave. They call it stoke. And it's just, it's very similar to like riding motorcycles, or like being in a trance state, ecstatic dance, all these things. It's definitely cool. I mean, if anyone wants to try it, they should, because it's a very unique high. Like I understand why people get so addicted to it, because it's just one of the best natural highs.
Do you ride each wave?
That's the thing. You would want to ride each wave, but more often than not, you're missing waves. You're wiping out. You're paddling. There's a lot of work is put into it, and it's not quite up to you. The forces of nature are a bit bigger, and of course, as you spend more time in the water, you get better. You can read the waves more, but at the end of the day, it's not up to you. It's more like you really need to go with the flow, and you have to adjust to the waves, and it's a very humbling experience. Like I think it's a very good. There's this great book called Saltwater Buddha, and the book talks a lot about the analogies of surfing and spirituality and life, and I think they're pretty spot on.
Mm.
Like you got to do the work, you got to pay the bills, you got to live, you got to exist in the world, and yeah, you have choices to make, but you have to like stick with them. Even if there are consequences, there are trade-offs, and it's the same thing with surfing. You gotta like, and I like this term. I like using it. Budget your energy. You can't go all out all the time, because you're gonna be so spent. And I think it's the same thing with all things. You need to constantly revisit. Where you're spending your energy on, how much energy you're expelling, and yeah, it's all about intention talaga. If not, you're just gonna be pulled from every side, every corner, and that's when burnout starts, and a lot of mental health problems.
Gee, surfing is a lot like life. No
It
day is the
is.
same, no wave is the same, no
Oh,
sunshine is the
not
same,
at all.
no wind is the same.
No, nothing is the same. That's the,
Oh.
you want it to be the same, but it will never be the same.
How different is Nick now than before?
Wow. Definitely very, very different. Like I always compare myself to, I guess, 8 years ago when I was still like, very, how do you say this? Like wide eyed, wanted to build a company, wanted to like have a lot of success, have a lot of money, very ambitious. And, now I think that although I consider myself a teacher, I still own a company, I still have responsibilities. And I feel like I'm getting to a stage in my life where, I guess starting to accept that, you gotta be in the world, you gotta pay the bills, you gotta work. And there's some things you might not like to do, but they're necessary. And it's just picking your battles talaga, and being and also appreciating what you have, because like, even when I wasn't involved in my company, it was able to last even though while I was teaching. And I think it's a gift to be able to still have that. And it's a 10-year company, so I think that's a gift in itself, that it survived even when I wasn't around. And now I'm entering a new space that's scary, it's very uncertain. And but ready or not, I'm entering it. It's just a matter of easing into the routine again, a new routine. And hopefully applying what I've learned, with the past couple of years into this, more, how do you say this, corporate setting.
Since you're getting back into your workplace, regardless of the challenge, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, financial, spiritual, what is a non-negotiable ingredient that Nick and I and people must have or keep?
An essential ingredient, I think, would have to be being kind to others, regardless of what you're going through. I think I've learned hard lessons with that. Me being in the receiving end, or being the one, not being too kind to others. And it's just everyone's going, that's the thing, everyone's going through challenges. No one is spared. It's just different kinds, different shapes. And be kind to them. And everyone's going through something, and try to have that compassion. Because I'd like to think that kindness trickles over other parts, like compassion, generosity, empathy, and like just being loving to others. And I think that's important. It doesn't like, especially with, like, in our country, there's the disparity between classes is so big. Like, no one's better than anybody. We're all the same. We're all human beings. I mean, yeah, there are distinctions with money, class, whatever, but at the end of the day, we're all gonna die. And at the end of the day, we're all, gonna get old. And you just gotta treat people right, treat people with kindness. I think that's super important.
Well, aside from growing up in a loving, closely knit, creative, artistic, cool family, were there moments that little boy Nick or little teenager Nick was crazy? What was the craziest thing you've ever done?
I was pretty crazy in high school and college, to be honest. Like I didn't study. I was a bad student. I was always drinking and partying, doing things I weren't supposed to do. I mean, I was inspired by all these films that of Dazed and Confused, or like the music I was listening to, and the people I was with. We all just. I'd have to admit, you were like hedonists. Like you were just in pursuit of pleasure. And because we emulated the people we saw on TV shows or in movies. And it's just like total disregard for work ethic and for authority. And I mean, I'm glad that I got away with a lot of stuff, but like, I mean, no regrets, no regrets. Like, I remember you would like just, yeah, be reckless. Drink till you got drunk, go to class drunk, like be super impulsive with money, have a lot of girls. It's just, you're living like that rock star life, but it's just, it's reckless abandon. It's like a rebel without a cause. There's nothing. I mean, then you realize that you can't really live that life forever, and it gets pretty old too, and you crave for more meaning, more, like fulfillment. But yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time. Like, I'm no regrets. I mean, I'm glad I experienced that early in life, and I think it's important for people to go through that as well, just to for life experience. I think you need to get wild. You need to make mistakes.
So if life were a carnival ride, what would it be?
Carnival ride. Definitely a roller coaster, like one of the scariest ones, with a lot of loops, a lot of drops, but also that there's that it ends, diba? That's the thing. It ends. Everything ends. Everything has a beginning, that middle part and the ending, and I think there's comfort in that, and a lot of dread in that as well. So it's just perspective lang talaga. I mean, either be grateful, appreciate your life, or come into it with like a scarcity mindset. I know it's hard, but you have that choice. We have that freedom to choose how we think. So might as well work on that and just like do the work and try to like be in that space of gratitude rather than the opposite.
Not all 35-year-olds think like you. How did you become like this? What did you go through to be a little wiser, a little more mature, a little better in the way you deal with life?
I think I've had a lot of uh very life altering experiences, like in my whole life. Like my dad passed away when I was 18. Like, that was a very tough time the next couple of years with my family. And I was yeah, I learned a lot of hard lessons. Diba? I was a bad student, so like I had to like really learn how to work pretty late, like towards the end of college. And there was a lot of proving to myself, and even having my own company and burning out with my own company, and my marriage ending 8 years ago as well. These were very pivotal moments, and I think it it forced me to really like go inside, introspect, and learn different, open myself up to different modalities, different spiritual traditions, different like new age practices. And even if I wasn't into it before, but I felt like, man, if the partying isn't working anymore, the drinking, the just the pleasure seeking isn't working, maybe there are other ways to kind of like to heal, to feel better. And I think that led me to that. And it's just I've met a lot of people, Ren, in the last couple of years, from very different backgrounds, very different perspectives, and I think that helped a lot. Being exposed to that and being in different cultures, I think, exposes you to different ways of lives, and you realize that there's no one way to live. But it's good to be exposed to them and to see them and to immerse in them. And I think all of those sort of like help shape me to the person that I am now. And it's a blessing for sure. Like I really am very grateful for it. And I always want to share that with people, that like life might be hard right now, it might suck, but like there's somebody else who's probably suffering way more than you too. So like just you got to put yourself out there. Doesn't I mean, especially now we can't really travel. Like I think the beauty of like on the social, the online Zoom calls, social media, is that you can connect with people, with dating apps. Use it for, but have clear intentions with it. Like if you want to get to know people, because it's a slippery slope, and it can become an addiction. It can become some source of like just like a distraction. But if you really use it just to be able to connect deeply, you're really gonna benefit from it.
How close is Nick to finding himself?
Hmm. Uh, I would like to say I'm pretty close. It's been a pretty winding journey, but like, I don't think it's ever gonna like reach it. I'll always feel like I'm close to it, but I know when I'm close to that, it's gonna be a different challenge, different lesson. But I'm at a point in my life right now, currently, where I feel like I'm learning a pretty big lesson in terms of like control, discipline, and being able to be responsible and accountable. These are things that I've neglected consciously for a while now, and I think now it's starting to like really sink in that it's time to be an adult about it and to confront them rather than just run away from them.
Can we play a little game, Nick?
Of course, of course.
I'll mention a pair of words. You have barely a few seconds to choose which one resonates better with you and briefly explain why you like that word. Okay.
Sure, sure, sure.
Would you be a leaf or a stem?
Definitely a leaf because I like the idea of them growing and also I guess falling away. It has that lifespan,
Wow.
whereas the stem I think is more like it supports the leaf, or the flowers. So I like that idea of like it being fragile and it blossoming, it wilting too.
Wow. Would you be a comet or a shooting star?
I would say shooting stars because it's so hard to catch them, like as humans to see them, and I think it's just very random, very spontaneous. I mean, comets I think are spontaneous, but like for us, it's like you need a clear sky. It needs to be like it's timing. It's like more like it's like divine timing to really catch a shooting star, and I like that that idea.
That it's fast or it's divine?
Both, both, both.
Have you seen one lately or in the recent past?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, a bunch of times in La Union, the skies are so clear that in the balcony you could see them like almost every night. So it's super cool. But here in Manila, it's so hard to see them.
Do you do as they say, make a wish?
I when I remember I do, but like yeah, like I don't lately. No, I don't think so. It's just more of appreciating them for what they are.
Okay. Would you be a ship or a plane?
Plane. I like the idea of being in flight in the air, and I don't know, planes for me are comfortable. I like long haul flights. I like, it feels very like you're hibernating, and you're really just forced to just eat, sleep, read or watch, veg out. I like that. And for me, because of the ship is a bit more, I get seasick easily. So like, it's just not as much as I love the ocean, to be on a vessel on the water is just not appealing.
I like the way you integrate life with all your responses. You are a leaf, and you are a shooting star, and you are an airplane. Wow. Now, we have a message for all your followers, fans, listeners, family, friends.
Yeah, I guess like the message should be to be, I said it a while ago, be kind to others, be kind to yourselves, be gentle on yourselves, be gentle on others as well. And, just we're in a very challenging time, I think humanity is, and but there's a lot to be grateful for. And, it's an opportunity to do the work. I won't say just work, but work on yourselves. Try to see where you can improve and, grow. So yeah, I mean, like, I offer classes online. So like at Nick Daez, and it'd be great to connect with you guys and help you guys, and in terms of meditation or just, like well-being, healing. And yeah, it's been great chatting, Pedro. Like, thanks so much for having me.
Address at Nick Daes, is it?
Yes, on Instagram.
At Nick Daes at Instagram for more of the Nick Daes. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for now. We can have more of Nick for a part two. Behind the scenes, a sneak peek, raw and rough conversation with someone we don't know, but now we do. Thank you. Let's give a warm virtual applause again to Nick Daez. Thank you and see you next time, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.